The envelope felt like ice in my trembling hands as I stared at the official courthouse seal. Petition for dissolution of marriage, Vane v. Vane. How did my search for a little excitement at a downtown club end with me standing in my own doorway, holding divorce papers while my 6-year-old daughter watched from behind her grandmother's protective arms? 3 months earlier, I thought I had it all figured out. My name is Astra Vane, 32 years old, middle manager at Premier Retail Solutions. I'd worked my way up from cashier to running 3 departments, and I deserved some recognition for that. More importantly, I deserved some excitement in my life. Edmund, my husband of 8 years, didn't see it that way. At 34, he'd settled into his IT specialist routine like an old man. Work, dinner, Netflix, bed, repeat. The most adventurous thing he'd done in months was trying a new pizza topping. "Ed, come on," I pleaded that Friday evening, applying my mascara in our bathroom mirror. "Janine's birthday party is going to be amazing. The whole crew from work will be there, and she booked VIP at that new club downtown. You know, the one with the rooftop." Edmund looked up from his laptop, where he was probably fixing someone's email settings or whatever boring tech stuff he did. "I told you, Astra, I have that server maintenance scheduled for tonight. Plus, Lila has soccer practice tomorrow morning at 8. Your mother can handle the soccer thing. She loves taking Lila places." I turned to face him, smoothing down my black dress. It was shorter than what I usually wore, but Janine had insisted we needed to look hot for her 29th birthday bash. "My mother shouldn't have to cover for us every time you want to go out," Edmund said quietly. There was something in his tone I didn't like. Disapproval, maybe, or judgment. Every time. When's the last time I went out? Really went out and had fun? I could feel my voice rising. I work 45 hours a week managing 3 departments. I handle most of Lila's school stuff. I keep this house running. Don't I deserve one night to feel young again? Edmund closed his laptop with a soft click. "Of course you deserve to have fun. I just think maybe we could find something we both enjoy, together." "Like what? Watching you play video games? Or maybe we could reorganize your computer cables again." The sarcasm dripped from my words. "Face it, Ed, you're 34 going on 60. Some of us still want to live a little." His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue back. That was Edmund's problem. He never fought for anything. Never showed passion about anything except his precious work projects. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. "Fine," he said finally. "Go have fun. I'll handle things here." 20 minutes later, I was in Janine's car with 3 other girls from work, pre-gaming with wine coolers and singing along to the radio. My sister Janine, 29 and still single, lived the kind of life I sometimes envied. No husband questioning her choices, no kids scheduled to work around, no boring domestic routine weighing her down. "Girl, you look incredible," Janine said, checking me out in the rearview mirror. "Edmund doesn't know what he's missing." "Edmund doesn't know what he's missing, period," laughed Nate Harper, my co-worker who'd somehow squeezed into the back seat with us. At 33, Nate was the kind of guy who made work fun, always organizing happy hours, always ready with gossip or a joke. That man needs to loosen up and appreciate what he's got. The club was everything I'd hoped for. Pulsing music, colored lights, beautiful people dressed to impress. In the VIP section, we had our own table and bottle service. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. Men looked at me, really looked at me, like I was desirable and interesting, not just someone's wife and mother. That's when I met Rafe Milo. He appeared at our table around midnight, all confident smile and expensive cologne. 30 years old, he introduced himself as one of the club's promoters. Dark hair, perfect teeth, and the kind of easy charm that made you feel like the most important person in the room. "Ladies, I hope you're having an amazing time," he said, his eyes lingering on me. Can I buy the birthday girl and her gorgeous friends another round? Janine practically melted. Oh my God, yes. This is the best birthday ever. But Rafe kept looking at me. I don't think I've seen you here before. I definitely would have remembered. The attention was intoxicating. When was the last time Edmund had looked at me like that? When was the last time any man had made me feel beautiful and wanted instead of just familiar? First time, I said, leaning closer so he could hear me over the music. My sister convinced me to live a little. Smart sister. His smile was perfect. What's your name? Astra. Beautiful name for a beautiful woman. Would you like to dance, Astra? I should have said no. I should have remembered I was married, remembered my daughter sleeping safely at home, remembered the man who worked late into the night to provide for our family. Instead, I took Rafe's offered hand and let him lead me onto the dance floor. The music was loud, the lights were hypnotic, and Rafe's hands on my waist felt like electricity. We danced close, closer than I'd danced with anyone except Edmund in 8 years. When Rafe leaned down to whisper something in my ear, his lips brushed against my skin. You're incredible, he said. Your husband must be crazy to let you out of his sight. He's not here, I said, and immediately regretted how that sounded, like an invitation. His loss, Rafe replied, pulling me closer. That's when I saw him. Edmund stood near the bar, still in his work clothes, khakis and a button-down shirt that screamed suburban dad, in a room full of stylish 20-somethings. He wasn't looking around frantically or pushing through the crowd to confront me. He was just watching, his face completely calm, taking in every detail of my hands on another man's shoulders, another man's hands on my waist. Our eyes met across the crowded dance floor. For a moment, everything else faded away. The music, the lights, Rafe's touch. It was just me and my husband, and the look in his eyes wasn't anger or jealousy. It was something much worse. Disappointment. Edmund turned and walked away without a word, without a scene, without giving me the fight that might have justified what I was doing. Everything okay? Rafe asked, following my gaze. Yeah, I lied, my heart pounding. Everything's perfect. But even as I said it, even as I let Rafe buy me another drink and whisper more compliments in my ear, I couldn't shake the image of Edmund's face. The way he'd looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. I stayed at the club until 2 a.m, collecting phone numbers and Instagram followers, basking in attention I'd forgotten I could receive. Janine posted dozens of photos and videos, tagging everyone, making sure the whole world could see how much fun we were having. When I finally got home, Edmund was asleep in the guest bedroom. A note on the kitchen counter informed me that Lila's soccer practice had been moved to 10 a.m, and that his mother would pick her up at 9:30. Even in his disappointment, he was still taking care of everything. I should have felt guilty. Instead, lying in our empty king-size bed, I felt more alive than I had in years. The next few weeks passed in a strange, tense dance. Edmund didn't confront me about the club. He didn't ask questions about Rafe or demand to see my phone. He just withdrew. Polite but distant, like a roommate instead of a husband. Meanwhile, my phone exploded with notifications. The photos and videos from Janine's birthday had gone viral among our friend group and co-workers. Everyone was commenting, sharing, tagging me in memories from that amazing night. At work, I was suddenly the cool manager, instead of just another suburban mom grinding through middle management. Girl, you broke the internet, Nate said Monday morning, showing me his phone. Look at this, 300 likes on just this one video of you dancing. You're famous. The video showed me and Rafe on the dance floor, his hands on my waist, both of us laughing and moving to the beat. I looked happy. I looked free. I looked like the woman I used to be before marriage and motherhood made me forget who I was. Send me that one, I said. I want to post it on my own account. You sure? I mean, it's pretty intimate. Won't Edmund have something to say about it? Edmund had his chance to be there. He chose to stay home and work on computers instead. I took Nate's phone and forwarded the video to myself. Besides, it's just dancing. If he has a problem with his wife having fun, that's his issue to work through. But when I posted the video that afternoon with the caption, "Sometimes you just need to remember how to live." No regrets. Naz, best night ever. Edmund's response wasn't what I expected. He liked the post, not commented, not questioned, not demanded I take it down. Just liked it, as if he was perfectly fine with the whole world seeing his wife in another man's arms. That evening, while I was helping Lila with her homework, I noticed Edmund in his home office with a notebook and calculator, writing things down in his neat, methodical handwriting. "What are you working on?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Just organizing some household information," he said without looking up. "Budget stuff, making sure everything's documented properly." "Documented for what?" "For accuracy." He finally looked at me, and again I saw that calm, measuring expression. "I've realized I haven't been paying close enough attention to details. I'm correcting that now." Something about his tone made me uncomfortable, but I couldn't put my finger on why. Edmund had always been organized, always kept meticulous records of our finances and schedules. This seemed like more of the same, except it wasn't. Over the next 2 weeks, I started noticing things. Edmund carried a small notebook everywhere, jotting down notes at odd moments. When I asked about it, he'd say he was tracking expenses or scheduling maintenance for his work projects. But I caught glimpses of what he was writing, and it wasn't budget numbers. Tuesday, 7:30 p.m., A posted club video with RM, 247 likes. Thursday, 6:15 p.m., A, 40 minutes late from work, said traffic. Saturday, 11:30 a.m., A phone buzzed 6 times during Lila's recital, kept checking messages. He was documenting my behavior, like I was some kind of research project. The realization hit me one evening when I found his laptop open on the kitchen counter. The screen showed a spreadsheet titled Household Events, March/April, with columns for dates, times, locations, and notes. Row after row of my activities, my social media posts, my text message times, even my work schedule. "Edmund," I called, my voice sharper than I intended. "What the hell is this?" He appeared from the laundry room, calm as always. "What's what?" "This," I gestured at the laptop screen. "You're keeping a spreadsheet about me. About my every move. I'm keeping records of household activities and schedules. It helps me stay organized and make sure I don't miss anything important." His tone was matter-of-fact, like he was explaining how to balance a checkbook. "This isn't household activities, Edmund. This is surveillance. You're tracking when I post on social media, when I come home from work, who I talk to. It's creepy and controlling." "Is it inaccurate?" The question caught me off guard. "What?" "Is anything in that spreadsheet inaccurate? Did I get any dates wrong? Any times wrong? Any facts wrong?" I stared at the screen, scrolling through weeks of my life reduced to data points. Every late night, every social media post, every time I'd been vague about my whereabouts. It was all there, time-stamped and cross-referenced. "That's not the point," I said finally. "The point is that you're treating me like a suspect instead of your wife. Normal husbands don't keep spreadsheets about their wives' activities. Normal wives don't dance with strange men at clubs while their husbands are home taking care of their children." There it was, the first direct reference to that night since it happened, but Edmund's voice remained level, almost conversational. No anger, no accusation, just a statement of fact. "I was dancing, Edmund, dancing. At my sister's birthday party. I'm sorry if that threatens your fragile ego, but I'm allowed to have fun." "Of course you are." He closed the laptop gently. "And I'm allowed to keep accurate records of our household activities, for planning purposes." "Planning purposes? Planning for what?" "For whatever might come up that requires accurate information about dates and events." He picked up the laptop and headed toward his office. "I've learned it's always better to have documentation than to rely on memory. Memory can be unreliable." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out when my husband had become a stranger. The Edmund I'd married was passionate about his work, but easygoing about everything else. He'd never been suspicious or controlling. He'd trusted me completely. Now he was keeping spreadsheets like I was a business expense he needed to track. My phone buzzed with a text from Rafe. "Hey beautiful, thinking about you. When can I see you again?" I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Soon, I'll figure something out." As I typed those words, I could almost hear the soft click of Edmund's fingers on his keyboard in the next room, probably adding this late-night phone activity to his precious spreadsheet. Well, let him document that. I was 32 years old, and I deserved to feel wanted and appreciated. If my own husband was too busy playing detective to notice what he was losing, maybe it was time he learned what real loss felt like. The first time I met Rafe outside the club, I told myself it was innocent. Just coffee, just conversation, just two adults enjoying each other's company. Nothing Edmund needed to worry about, assuming he even cared enough to worry. "You look incredible," Rafe said when I walked into the downtown cafe where we'd agreed to meet. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I'd taken a long lunch break from work, even more beautiful in daylight. The compliment sent warmth through my chest. When was the last time Edmund had told me I looked incredible? When was the last time he'd looked up from his laptop long enough to notice what I was wearing? "Thank you," I said, sliding into the booth across from him. "You clean up pretty well yourself." Rafe laughed, that easy, confident sound that made me feel like I was the most interesting person in the room. "So tell me about yourself, Astra. What do you do when you're not lighting up dance floors?" For the next hour, we talked about everything: my job, my dreams, my frustrations with suburban life. Rafe listened like every word mattered. He asked follow-up questions, remembered details, made me feel heard in a way I'd forgotten was possible. "Your husband's an idiot," he said when I mentioned Edmund's reaction to the club night. "If I had a woman like you at home, I'd never let her feel like she needed to look elsewhere for attention." "I'm not looking elsewhere," I said quickly. "I mean, this is just friendship, just talking." "Of course." Rafe's smile was understanding, but his eyes held a hint of something more. "Just talking, between friends." When I got home that evening, Edmund was in the kitchen helping Lila with a science project about the solar system. They had construction paper and markers spread across the dining table, working together to create a model of Jupiter's moons. "Mommy," Lila ran to hug me, "Daddy's helping me make the biggest planet. Did you know Jupiter has 79 moons?" "That's amazing, sweetheart." I kissed the top of her head, breathing in her little girl scent of strawberry shampoo and playground dust. "You're going to have the best project in your class." "How was your day?" Edmund asked without looking up from the construction paper. His tone was polite, conversational, the tone you'd use with a neighbor or co-worker. "Fine, busy. The usual retail chaos." The lie came easily, which should have bothered me more than it did. "What about you?" "Productive. Fixed the Henderson account server issue, updated the backup protocols for 3 clients, and scheduled maintenance for next week." He glanced at his watch. "Dinner should be ready in 20 minutes. I made that chicken and rice dish you like." Of course he had. Edmund always made dinner, always had everything organized and planned. It should have made me grateful. Instead, it made me feel suffocated by routine and predictability. My phone buzzed with a text from Rafe. "Thank you for a wonderful afternoon. Can't wait to see you again." I quickly deleted the message, but not before noticing Edmund's eyes flick toward my phone. He didn't ask about it, didn't demand to see it. He just made a mental note, the way he'd been making mental notes about everything lately. "I need to change clothes," I said, heading toward our bedroom. "Mom," Lila called after me, "will you help us with Saturn's rings after dinner?" "Of course, baby. Mommy just needs a few minutes." In our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my reflection in the dresser mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed younger than she had in months. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright with excitement. She looked like someone with secrets, someone living an interesting life. She looked like someone worth wanting. Over the next 3 weeks, Rafe and I met 6 more times. Coffee dates became lunch dates. Lunch dates became long walks through downtown. Long walks became sitting in his car, talking for hours about everything and nothing. "You're different from other women I know," he said during one of our car conversations. "More real, more honest about what you want from life." "What do I want from life?" I asked, genuinely curious about his answer. "Excitement, passion. Someone who sees how special you are and isn't afraid to show it." His hand moved to cover mine on the center console. "You deserve to be worshipped, Astra, not taken for granted." The touch of his skin against mine sent electricity up my arm. We were crossing a line, and we both knew it. The smart thing would have been to pull away, to end this before it became something I couldn't take back. Instead, I turned my hand palm up and laced our fingers together. "This is crazy," I whispered. "The best things usually are," Rafe replied, lifting our joined hands to kiss my knuckles. That evening, I came home to find Edmund in his office, with multiple file folders spread across his desk. Each folder was labeled in his precise handwriting: household, custody, financial, evidence. "What's all this?" I asked from the doorway, trying to keep my voice casual. "Organization," Edmund said, not looking up from whatever document he was reviewing. "I'm making sure all our important papers are properly filed and accessible." "Evidence of what?" "Evidence of whatever might need to be evidenced." He finally looked at me, and that measuring expression was back. "How was work today?" "Fine. Long meeting with corporate about the new inventory system." Another lie, smooth as silk. I was getting good at this. Edmund made a note on a legal pad. "What time did that meeting end?" "Why?" "Just curious about your schedule. Making sure I have accurate information for planning purposes." There was something in his tone that made my skin crawl. Not anger, not suspicion. Something worse. Something that sounded like patience. Like he was waiting for something specific to happen. "Edmund, this is getting weird. The spreadsheets, the folders, the constant note-taking. What are you planning?" "I'm not planning anything, Astra. I'm just being prepared." He closed the folder he'd been reading and placed it in a filing cabinet that I noticed now had a lock on it. Being prepared is never a bad thing. That night, as I lay in bed pretending to sleep, I heard Edmund moving around the house. Soft footsteps, the quiet sound of papers shuffling, the click of his laptop keyboard. He was documenting something, recording something, building some kind of case against me. But a case for what? What did he think he was going to prove? My phone, hidden under my pillow, buzzed with another message from Rafe. "Missing you already. Tomorrow can't come fast enough." Tomorrow we were meeting at his apartment for the first time. Just to talk, we'd agreed. Just to have somewhere private where we could be ourselves without worrying about being seen. Just to talk. As I typed back "missing you too," I wondered if Edmund's mysterious spreadsheet would somehow capture the rapid beating of my heart, the flush of excitement that heated my skin, the way I felt more alive thinking about tomorrow than I had in years of tomorrows with my husband. Probably not. Even Edmund's obsessive documentation couldn't measure the things that really mattered. Could it? Rafe's apartment was everything Edmund's wasn't. Modern, stylish, designed for a man who entertained and impressed. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, expensive furniture arranged to create intimate conversation areas, and music playing softly from hidden speakers. "Welcome to my world," Rafe said, taking my jacket and hanging it carefully in a closet that probably cost more than my car. "Can I get you some wine? I have a bottle of Pinot Grigio that's supposed to be incredible." "That sounds perfect." I walked to the windows, looking out at the city sprawling below us. From up here, my suburban life seemed small and far away. My routine, my responsibilities, my husband's suspicious spreadsheets. All of it felt like someone else's problems. Beautiful view, I said when Rafe joined me with 2 glasses of wine. Not as beautiful as you. He handed me a glass, his fingers brushing against mine in a way that sent familiar electricity through my system. I'm glad you came, Astra. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. The wine was smooth and expensive, nothing like the bottles Edmund and I picked up at the grocery store. This is complicated for me. It doesn't have to be complicated. Rafe moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the warmth radiating from his body. Sometimes the best things in life are actually very simple. Simple? I laughed, but it came out breathless. I'm married with a 6-year-old daughter. Nothing about this is simple. Okay, maybe not simple, but right. His free hand came up to touch my cheek. This feels right, doesn't it? The way we connect, the way you light up when we're together. When's the last time your husband made you feel this way? The honest answer was never. Edmund had never made me feel like I was glowing from the inside, never made my pulse race with just a look. Our relationship had always been steady, comfortable, safe. I'd thought that was what I wanted. Now, standing in Rafe's apartment with his hand on my face and the city lights twinkling below us, safe felt like another word for boring. Astra, Rafe said softly, stepping even closer. I've been thinking about you constantly since that night at the club. About your smile, your laugh, the way you move. I can't get you out of my head. Rafe, I started to say something about boundaries, about being married, about this being wrong. But then his lips were on mine, and all those words disappeared. The kiss was everything I'd forgotten I was missing. Passionate, desperate, full of want and need, and the kind of electric connection that made the rest of the world fade away. When we finally broke apart, I was breathing hard and my wine glass was somehow empty. Stay, Rafe whispered against my lips. Please stay. I should have said no, should have grabbed my jacket and run back to my safe, boring, documented life. Instead, I set down my wine glass and kissed him again. 3 hours later, I sat in my car in Rafe's parking garage, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My hair was messed up, my lipstick was gone, and my clothes were wrinkled. I looked like exactly what I was, a married woman who'd just cheated on her husband. The smart thing would be to go home, confess everything to Edmund, and beg for forgiveness. We could go to counseling, work through our problems, rebuild our marriage on a foundation of honesty and communication. But as I drove home through the quiet suburban streets, I couldn't make myself feel guilty. For the first time in years, I felt desired, appreciated, alive. Rafe saw me as a woman worth pursuing, worth risking complications for. He made me remember who I used to be before I became just Edmund's wife and Lila's mother. The house was dark when I pulled into our driveway. Edmund's car was there, but all the lights were off except for the porch light he always left on for me. I checked my phone, 11:47 p.m. Much later than I'd planned to be out, but not suspiciously late. I told Edmund I was having dinner with Janine to celebrate her new promotion. I slipped into the house as quietly as possible, but the kitchen light flicked on before I'd made it to the stairs. How was dinner? Edmund asked from the doorway, fully dressed despite the late hour. Good, really good. Janine's excited about the promotion, and we got caught up talking about her new responsibilities. The lie felt heavier this time, weighted with guilt I hadn't expected to feel. That's nice. Edmund's eyes took in my appearance, my messed hair, my wrinkled clothes, the fact that I was carrying my shoes instead of wearing them. Long dinner. You know how Janine gets when she's excited. She wanted to celebrate properly. I moved toward the stairs, eager to escape his calm, measuring gaze. I'm exhausted, going to shower and go to bed. Astra. I stopped, my hand on the banister. Yeah? Your lipstick is gone. My heart stopped. What? When you left for dinner, you were wearing that red lipstick you like. It's gone now. His voice was conversational, curious. Did you reapply it during dinner? No, I wiped it off. It was getting on my wine glass and annoying me. Another lie, but what else could I say? Edmund made a mental note, literally, pulling out his phone and typing something. What restaurant did you go to? Why? Just curious, in case Lila asks about your evening. She wanted to wait up for you, but I told her you'd tell her about Aunt Janine's celebration tomorrow. The mention of our daughter hit me like a physical blow. While I'd been kissing another man, my little girl had wanted to wait up to hear about my evening. While I'd been betraying her father, she'd been excited to share in what she thought was family news. We went to that new Italian place downtown, I said, the lie coming automatically now. Lila would like it. Maybe we should take her there sometime. Maybe. Edmund typed something else into his phone. Sleep well, Astra. In the shower, I scrubbed my skin until it was red and raw, trying to wash away the evidence of what I'd done. But even after 20 minutes under scalding water, I could still smell Rafe's cologne, still feel his hands on my body, still taste his kiss on my lips. The worst part was that I didn't want to wash it away. Despite the guilt, despite the lies, despite the risk to my family, I wanted to hold on to the memory of feeling desired and alive. When I finally got into bed, Edmund was already asleep in the guest room, or pretending to be asleep. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and listening to the quiet sounds of the house settling around us. The next morning, I found a new folder on Edmund's desk labeled Vane v. Vane. Inside were printed screenshots of text messages, social media posts, and what looked like a timeline of dates and locations. My dates and locations. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. Every meeting with Rafe was documented, cross-referenced with my lies about where I'd been. Every late night, every changed story, every inconsistency was highlighted and annotated in Edmund's precise handwriting. At the bottom of the folder was a business card for Davidson and Associates, family law attorneys. I dropped the folder like it was on fire, papers scattering across Edmund's desk. My husband wasn't just documenting my behavior anymore. He was building a case, and from the looks of his evidence, it was going to be a strong one. The next 2 weeks passed in a haze of paranoia and reckless abandon. I knew Edmund was watching, documenting, building his case, but instead of being more careful, I became more brazen. If my marriage was already over, if he was already planning to destroy our family with his lawyers and evidence folders, then what was the point of pretending anymore? Rafe and I met almost daily now. Long lunches, afternoon coffee dates, evening walks through the city. We'd moved beyond stolen kisses to full-blown affair territory, and I stopped caring who might see us together. Let Edmund add it to his precious spreadsheet. Let him document every moment of happiness I found outside our dead marriage. You seem different, Rafe said one afternoon as we lay in his bed, city lights filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. More relaxed, more yourself. I feel different. I traced patterns on his chest, marveling at how natural this felt, how right. Like I'm finally waking up after years of sleepwalking through my life. What are you going to do about your situation at home? It was the question I'd been avoiding, the reality I wasn't ready to face. I don't know. It's complicated with Lila. And Edmund's not going to make this easy. What do you mean? I told him about the folders, the spreadsheets, the business card for the family law attorney. Rafe listened without judgment, his fingers stroking my hair as I explained how my husband had turned into some kind of detective, documenting my every move. Sounds like he's planning to divorce you, Rafe said when I finished. The question is, what do you want? I want to be happy. I want to feel alive. I want to be with someone who appreciates me. I looked up at him, this beautiful man who'd reminded me what passion felt like. I want to be with you. Then fight for it. Don't let him control the narrative or make you feel guilty for choosing happiness. Rafe's voice was firm, confident. You deserve better than a husband who treats you like a suspect. That evening, I came home to find Edmund in the living room with Lila, helping her practice piano. The scene was so domestic, so normal, that for a moment I felt a pang of something that might have been regret. "Mommy," Lila jumped up from the piano bench and ran to hug me. "Listen to what I learned today." She played a simple melody, her small fingers carefully finding each note. Edmund sat beside her on the bench, patient and encouraging, the kind of father every child deserved. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," I said, kissing the top of her head. "You're getting so good at piano. Daddy says if I practice every day, maybe we can get a real piano instead of this keyboard." Lila looked between us hopefully. "A big one like they have at school." "Maybe," I said, avoiding Edmund's eyes. "We'll see." After Lila went to bed, Edmund and I sat in the living room in uncomfortable silence. He was reading something on his tablet while I scrolled through my phone, both of us pretending everything was normal. "Astra," he said finally, not looking up from his screen. "We need to talk." My heart started racing. "About what?" "About where we go from here." He set down his tablet and looked at me directly. "I know about Rafe Milo." The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because I was surprised, I'd known he was building a case, but because hearing his name spoken aloud in our living room made everything real, in a way it hadn't been before. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said automatically. Edmund reached for a folder on the coffee table, the same Vane v. Vane folder I'd found on his desk. "I have photos of you entering and leaving his apartment building. I have screenshots of deleted text messages that I recovered from our phone records. I have witness statements from people who've seen you together at various locations around the city." He opened the folder and spread the contents across the coffee table like evidence in a courtroom. Photos of me and Rafe holding hands, kissing in his car, entering his building together. Text message printouts with timestamps and phone numbers. A detailed timeline of every lie I'd told about my whereabouts. "You hired a private investigator?" I asked, staring at the photos in shock. "I didn't need to. You weren't exactly discreet." Edmund's voice remained calm, matter of fact. "The question now is what we're going to do about it." "Edmund, I can explain..." "Explain what? That you've been having an affair for the past month? That you've been lying to me, to Lila, to everyone about where you've been and what you've been doing?" He gestured at the evidence spread between us. "The facts speak for themselves, Astra." "The facts don't tell the whole story." I stood up, pacing to the window. "They don't tell you how lonely I've been, how ignored and taken for granted. They don't tell you how you've turned into a robot who cares more about spreadsheets than your own wife. So this is my fault." "It's both our faults. We let our marriage die, Edmund. We became roommates instead of lovers, co-parents instead of partners. I found someone who makes me feel alive again. And yes, maybe I handled it wrong, but at least I'm trying to feel something." Edmund was quiet for a long moment, studying the photos of me with another man. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer, but somehow more final. "I filed for divorce yesterday." The words hung in the air between us like a death sentence. I'd known this was coming, had seen the evidence building for weeks, but hearing it spoken aloud still felt like being punched in the stomach. "You can't just decide that unilaterally," I said, my voice shaking. "We have a daughter together. We have a life together. You can't just throw it all away because you're hurt." "I'm not throwing it away, Astra. You already did that." He started gathering the photos and documents, organizing them back into neat piles. "I'm just making it official." "What about Lila? What about our family? You're going to destroy our daughter's life because you can't forgive me for one mistake." "One mistake?" Edmund looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "This wasn't one mistake. This was a month of deliberate choices, lies, and betrayal. This was you deciding that your happiness mattered more than our family." "My happiness does matter. I matter. I'm not just your wife and Lila's mother. I'm a person with needs and desires and the right to feel wanted and appreciated." "You're right," Edmund said quietly. "You are a person with needs and desires. and you've made it clear that those needs can't be met within our marriage, so I'm setting you free to pursue them. Edmund, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling, start over, rebuild what we had. What we had is gone, Astra. You killed it when you decided to find what you needed in another man's bed. He stood up, folder in hand. The papers will be served tomorrow. I'm asking for primary custody of Lila, given the documented evidence of your extracurricular activities. You bastard! The words came out as a whisper, but they carried all the rage and fear and desperation I felt. You're going to try to take my daughter away from me. I'm going to protect my daughter from the chaos you've brought into our lives. Edmund's calm finally cracked, just for a moment, and I saw the pain underneath his methodical exterior. She deserves stability, Astra. She deserves parents who put her needs first. I do put her first. Do you? When you were in Rafe Milo's apartment last Tuesday afternoon, where was Lila? When you were lying to me about having dinner with your sister, what example were you setting for our daughter about honesty and commitment? I had no answer for that, no justification that didn't sound selfish and hollow. The papers will be served tomorrow, Edmund repeated, heading toward the stairs. I suggest you find yourself a good attorney. That night, I called Rafe through tears, telling him everything that had happened. He was supportive, understanding, everything I needed him to be. It's going to be okay, he said. This is actually good news. Now you're free to be with me without all the sneaking around and guilt. We can be together properly. But as I hung up the phone and looked around the house I'd called home for 8 years, at the photos of our family vacations, and Lila's artwork covering the refrigerator, free felt like another word for lost. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the life I'd built would officially end, and I'd have to face the consequences of choosing passion over stability, excitement over commitment, my happiness over my family's security. Tomorrow, I'd learn if the price of feeling alive was worth losing everything else that mattered. Served at 7:30 a.m., I opened the envelope and saw Edmund wasn't bluffing. Divorce papers, adultery claims, and a temporary order that pushed me out and limited me to supervised visits. He took Lila to school, brought his mother in, and told me to be gone when they returned. At my sister's, the reality landed. He was going for primary custody with evidence, and I needed a lawyer fast. Rafe acted supportive, but the us fantasy cracked the moment it became messy and legal. My attorney confirmed Edmund had built a thorough case, and I'd be fighting uphill. Weeks later, the judge granted Edmund primary custody and left me supervised visitation, while Rafe walked away from the drama. On the courthouse steps, Edmund said it ended this way because of my choices, and I finally understood I'd traded my family for attention I never needed.